Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, here we go. Episode 7, jumping right in. Hope you all doing great out there. Goal of this episode, understand training/exercise better. Okay, so at the end of this episode, you're going to better understand training and exercise, which, as we talked about in the last one, there's a slight difference there, but both are going to make sense after this. How about that? Also, understand recovery better. We're going to talk a little bit about recovery and how it ties in, and we're going to shine light on overuse injuries. If you ever wonder what those were, they will make sense at the end of this podcast. And we are going to use the word inimical in a sentence. I'll leave you in suspense. We'll cover the definition of that when we get there. Inimical. I can hear the cat. Outline of topics, updates, questions from the audience. That would be you. How exercise training works. Acute versus chronic. Overtrained or under-recovered with a question mark. And some final thoughts. That is the outline of topics for today. Let's ease into this with some updates. Some of you care about this. Lions took care of the Texans. Squeaked by on that one. Weather up here in the great north. More clouds, 30s to 50s. One of these episodes, I'm going to be like, there's 12 inches on the ground. There's slush everywhere. It's 2 degrees. I guess it wouldn't be slush if there was 2 degrees. Anyways, winter is coming, as they say. Oh, both of those work in that situation. Subscriber updates, email 61 to 62. We added one. I think I know who it is, too. YouTube, 40 to 41. YouTube grows by 1. Spotify, sitting at 17. But get this, Apple goes from 13 to 17, trying to take the lead on Spotify. Do we think it's possible? I don't know. We're going to find out, though. Reminder. Please submit your questions to dennis@dennisfenrich.com or reply to the email that you get if you're already subscribed. With that in mind, we have 2 questions. So what I'm going to do is read the questions here. Was that on the outline of topic? Yes, it was. Questions from the audience. Let's get into these questions. I'm going to read the whole thing. There was like parts to this, and I didn't know if I should address them separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the whole thing, and then I'm going to answer. It's basically 2 questions, one being reworded, but here we go. Hello, I have a few questions for you. I realized on my drive home after a session today that I had asked you my question wrong, so here's what I actually meant. So if you don't know, which I think most of you do, but if you don't, I run a gym and I still do classes there. And during one of the classes, somebody, because this email had no signature, and it was one of those emails that the name isn't in there, so I'm not sure who it is. I think I know, but I'm not sure. I realized on my drive home, we had talked about something in class and they had a question, or they didn't like the way they asked it. Question 1. When hitting a 1 rep max or any lifting in general, should I be solely focusing on my range of motion and not increasing weight until I have a full range of motion? My answer to that would be 2 parts. Ideally, yes, right? Like in the perfect world, you're going to get your position in place and you're going to continue to work on your range of motion through that position until you've got a good, complete range of motion. And then you're going to start loading and adding intensity to that range of motion and position. But it doesn't have to go that way. You can have some artistic nature to it, and you can do a quarter squat or a 3/4 squat that's not below parallel with load because you're still getting strength training. So I guess maybe not in the ideal world, but I guess in an ideal world, you would actually work on both simultaneously. Just ensure that the load is never compromising the position, because picking up weight and putting on your back, I'm pretty sure we're talking about the back squat here because I remember this vaguely. Picking up load and putting it on your back and squatting to 3/4 or just above parallel is still going to get you stronger. It's still going to increase tissue density. It's still going to increase bone density. It's still going to increase capacity in that movement. And whilst you're doing that and you're working on your movement patterns, continue to develop your range of motion. Now, they asked the same question, reworded. I'll say it again. I don't think I have a different answer, though. If I'm not hitting my depth on a squat of any sort, should I be increasing weight as I progress, or should I only increase weight once I have that full range of motion? And I just answered that I think both. You can work a load through a good range of motion and also work on your position. I don't know if I said that correctly, but I already answered that one. 2, how does one improve their range of motion in a more streamlined way? Man, there is no tried and true, hard and fast way to do it. I would say that the best way, though, the most efficient way is to use the PRI concept, position, range of motion, and intensity. Because when you're actually doing the squat in this situation and you're stopping at where the range of motion causes a deviation in the position, you are signaling the proper movement patterns. And on top of that, you're doing the movement. You're training all the tissues that need to be able to do the movement simultaneously, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to do the couch stretch and a hurdle stretch and a hamstring stretch and a glute stretch and a groin stretch. And I'm going to separate all these pieces out. And then I hope that that's going to end up with me having a better squat. Reciprocal inhibition, the best way to improve the body is to move the body. You can compartmentalize, you can focus on certain areas, and there's value in that. But generally speaking, the fastest, most streamlined way is to work on the movement that you want to do, maintain your position, so on and so forth. Thank you for that question. All right, question number 2. This one put me back for a little bit too. I was like, oh, that's a good question. On the topic of cell regeneration, we're going back a few episodes here. On the topic of cell regeneration, if cells regenerate, why is there liver failure, heart issues, and so on? If the organs, like the liver as you stated, you will, in quotes, you will have a new liver by 150 to 500 days, why do they fail us? Are the cells not regenerating at a fast, healthy rate? Interested in more details on that topic. And I would actually say, are the cells regenerated enough? I would say a lagging metabolism on energy and cellular regeneration would play a role in that. This is going to be multifaceted. It could be a weak immune function. It could be low nutrition status. It could be age. There's going to be a ton of factors that play in. How much sleep are you getting? What are your stress levels at? What's the TSL, which we're going to talk about actually, I think it's coming up in the next episode, total stress load that your body is incurring or you are incurring. It's all going to play in. But I'd like to say there's 2 major players, and those 2 major players are going to be, think of it like this. What are cells doing, right? They're replicating themselves. And so basically they're making a copy. And then it's a copy of a copy. And then it's a copy of a copy of a copy. And we all know when you run the thing through the Xerox and you continue to run copy after copy after copy, it doesn't keep copying it perfectly. And there's little minor imperfections. And then those imperfections get copied and then more get put into it. And over time, you just don't get the exact same thing. And that is happening in your cells. Fortunately, I mean, the replication, if you think about it, is incredibly accurate. It's unbelievable when you think about what those cells are doing and how nearly perfect that the cell replication is. It's truly astonishing, but it's not perfect. And as you age, that starts to weigh in. And when those cells aren't replicating perfectly, say cells in your immune system, cells in your liver, cells in your heart, cells in your brain, then you're going to start to see imperfections. You're going to start to see disease get a chance to take a hold. And things eventually go south. So that would be 1, copies of copies. 2, chronic exposure to things, right? So my cells, I could be eating the perfect diet. I could be exercising amazing. I could be sleeping like awesome, but I smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes. But if somebody were to do that, you're incurring this external exposure to something that is just going to eventually, most likely, smoking cigarettes does not create cancer. You can't say smoking cigarettes causes cancer. You can't, because not everybody who smokes cigarettes gets cancer. In order to say cause, it has to happen every time, okay? But is there an increased chance of getting cancer with smoking cigarettes? 100% absolutely is going to be a big increased chance, okay? So the chronic exposure can be overwhelming the cells. I mean, you got the replication going on, you got everything else going on, the sleep, the age, and all that stuff. And so you're getting a chronic exposure to something. So I'd say those are the two main factors that are going to come into play when it comes to getting disease. I mean, obviously lack of movement and these other things, poor nutrition, but your cells are copying. They don't do it perfectly for an infinite amount of years, and chronic exposure to things is going to start to have its toll on you. So avoid those things where you can. All right. Let's get into this. Where is it? Nope. Let's get into the topic for today. Thank you for those questions, by the way. Appreciate you listening and participating. How exercise training works. Super simple analogy. And this was the first thing that I learned. Was it the first thing I learned? I don't know. But this is way back in the day. This has been in the thinking for a long, long time. And it is a super simple analogy, and it brings a lot of clarity and understanding around how training works. And basically, you got the dirt and you got the shovel. And when the shovel goes into the dirt, it digs a hole. And when that hole happens, that is a deficit. And that deficit needs to get filled back in, right? So your body is the dirt and the shovel is the training. And when the shovel comes in and digs a hole, you're losing stuff. You're breaking down tissue. You're expending energy. You're creating a hole or a deficit. Shovel and dirt. Your body is the dirt, and the shovel is the training or the exercise. So, what is the dirt? What needs to be recovered? And I already touched on this briefly. The energy you burn needs to be recovered, right? So you go out and you burn 800 calories in your workout. And we go, that's awesome. Good job. Guess what? That energy needs to be recovered from somewhere. And if probably don't need to talk about this, but if you are in a low body fat percentage, well, guess what? You don't have a lot of energy to draw from. You're going to have to eat that. So you won't be able to create as big of a deficit if your body fat percentage is low. Now, if your body fat is higher and you've got more stored energy, you'll be able to draw from that. But it's going to be a limit. And at some point, the body's going to start to not do that because it doesn't like to lose too much energy too fast, because it puts the brakes on that thing, because that is leading to the end, right? It has an adaptive mechanism to prevent that from happening. So you have to recover the energy that's burned. The tissue you damaged from the training, which is how it works. It's not bad, but you have to understand that is actually what is happening. Hard training creates actual tissue damage. Little micro fractures in the bones, little tears, micro tears in the tissues. You get stressors and damaged tissue into the ligaments, and all that stuff then is good because it gets rebuilt. And when it gets rebuilt, you come back stronger and better and badder. But you're incurring tissue damage. Little interesting thing. Say you do a hard squat workout and your quads get really, really sore. 7/8 of the new, that's not how I want to say that. 7/8 of the protein that is used to build back the quadricep or any muscle comes from the muscle that is already there, right? So if you picture the tissues are damaged, the muscle is damaged, well, it doesn't wash away and draw away all the damaged tissue and then bring in all new tissue to rebuild it, basically amino acids. It on site breaks down the damaged tissue, takes it apart and puts it back together to rebuild back to the tissue that's already, the tissue right there. So 7/8 of that is from already there. Only 1/8 of that is going to come from what's coming from your diet, which I don't know. I just think that's fascinating. Keep it on site, man. It's like, you're doing construction in the road, and they're gonna break down that cement right there, and they're gonna grind it up and reuse it for the new cement. It's the same thing. Hopefully that made it make sense to you. The little extra, okay, so we got to recover the energy. We got to rebuild back the damaged tissue. And we also have to do two other things. We have to add a little extra of both And that's the adaptation, right? So you got to recover the energy, you got to build back that tissue, and then you got to put a little bit on top, just a little bit. I want to hit a button right now. I don't know which one though. And that is how training works, okay? Key point, and this is where you'll begin to understand overtraining and overuse injuries in a little bit here. Key point is it's a deficit. You're literally creating a deficit, energy and tissue deficit. Okay. Let's talk about acute versus chronic. Acute, short, limited, small, temporary, etc. Chronic, long-term, persistent, detrimental, etc. Okay? So acute, short, little dose, small amount, manageable. Chronic, either a whole bunch of small doses that you're not recovering from, a big, massive dose that doesn't go away, like being chronically exposed to cigarettes or chronically exposed to high levels of stress or chronically exposed to chemicals or some sort of chronic exposure, okay? Now, in terms of training, acute is good because it allows for positive adaptation, and chronic is bad because it doesn't allow for positive adaptation. Back to the shovel and dirt analogy. It's chronic when you just keep digging a hole and you're not getting enough recovery, okay? This is super critical to know if you're going to be exercising and training because you can't do an unlimited amount. You know, like a chronic dose. Say you had a chronic small dose. You decided, just one day, you ain't exercising 3 or 4 months, and you're just going to run a marathon that day. Well, I mean, it's acute in terms of duration. Well, I don't know. See, it's not even acute at that level. It's like 4, 5, 6 hours. But that is a massive dose that's going to have an effect. You're going to dig a big old hole on that. I don't know why I decided to say that. All right. Consistent acute signals or stressors are how you build your body. So you want to think stressor, training, exercise, your recovering the energy in the tissue that you created a deficit in, and then a little bit of adaptation. And then you just repeat this over and over and over again. And over time, you build up tissue density, you build up capacity, you build up efficiency and energy expenditure, and things get better. Acute versus chronic. Got to understand acute versus chronic to understand overtrained or under-recovered. Am I recording? Wrong time to check that. We're recording there. And we're recording there. Fantastic. I don't know. Who knows? Overtrained or under-recovered. Let's look at the adaptation side or recovery. Okay, so we talked about digging the hole in the recovery. Now we separated acute and chronic, and now we're going to talk about the adaptive side. So I'm going to create a signal. I'm going to get a stressor. I'm going to create a deficit, but then I got to adapt and I got to come back from that. What are the key players? What are the things that are going to enhance or restrict my capacity to recover? And there's 3 big ones, and you probably know what they are, or you can at least start to think about them now. 1, off the top, nutrition. Obviously, right? If you continue to exercise and you're not eating, there's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem real quick. About 5 days, you're going to be, well, probably sooner than that. But nutrition. And the 2 players in nutrition are going to be, we've talked about a ton already in previous episodes, are how much protein are you getting in and how much energy are you getting in, right? Because if those 2 are being restricted, well, it's going to restrict your capacity to rebuild back your energy and rebuild back your tissues. Next, sleep. Okay, sleep is huge. When you're sleeping, big things are happening. Basically, when you sleep, everything good happens. You send out a massive hormonal dump that builds back your tissues. Your brain gets washed over and regenerate. It starts to rebuild back its neurotransmitters. It's just the time to rejuvenate. That is part of your recovery. So if you should be getting 8 hours and you're getting 6, well, that's going to put a little restriction on your capacity to recover. If you should be getting 8 hours, and you're getting 4, that's going to be even more so. And something else to think about. 1 half of your sleep, the first half, and God bless America. If I'm not 100% sure on this now, isn't that something funny? One half of your sleep, and I believe it's the first half, but I could be wrong, is the regeneration side, the tissue rebuilding side. The hormonal dump happens in your first half of sleep, so the first 4-ish hours. And then the second half of sleep is when you get more of the brain and the nervous system recovery, like the washing of the brain. So your brain doesn't clean itself up during the day. It's just kind of running. And then when you go to bed, that's when it releases fluids in there. I think it's just synovial fluid, but I could be wrong. Some sort of special nerve brain fluid. Whatever it is, gets released over your brain, it washes it off, and then the neurotransmitters get rebuilt. And so first half is, think, tissue body recovery. Second half is like nervous system brain recovery. It's just a general way to think of it, but that is very distinct different phases of sleeping. So guess what? If you're just short in your sleep all the time, your brain ain't going to be getting what it needs. You'll get your recovery into the tissue, but you're going to miss out on the second half because it doesn't switch over. Okay, sleep. So we got nutrition, we got sleep. What else is going to affect our recovery, or it's important for recovery? Downtime, relaxing, connecting with people. Man, I am listening to a podcast right now, and it is blowing my mind. I should write it down and tell you all to listen to it. It's the Huberman Podcast, and it's episode, I got my phone out here. See if I can find what episode this is. Come on, Dennis. Don't play the crickets. How relationships shape your brain. Oh, it doesn't have a number. He doesn't have numbers. Anyways, it's the most recent one, Dr. Alan Shore, How Relationships Shape Your Brain. And literally, relationships are shaping your brain. And you got to listen to this podcast because it is mind-altering. It'll change your view of people and yourself drastically. Anyways, brings me back to my point. Downtime, right? Life is not stress. Work is stress. Training, exercise is stress. Getting things done is stress. You're expending energy. You're incurring stress in the processes of those things. And you need to find time, ideally every day, to relax. Give yourself 2-3 hours at the end of the day. I know plenty of you are going, I don't have that kind of time. Well, you better work it in because you're probably frazzled if you're not. In fact, I know you're frazzled if you're not. If you're just going up and going all day and then you're not winding down to some degree at night and getting relaxed, you're going to run into problems. I just experienced it myself. I lived it. But downtime, relaxing, connecting with people, stress and tension relieving. You need to do that. Listen to that podcast on Huberman, man. You'll really understand why you need to do it. But that connecting with people and that downtime is bringing yourself out of a sympathetic response into a parasympathetic response. You are going from a high stress state of being active during the day to down regulating. And we haven't gotten into this yet, but stress or rest is a thing, right? I'm either stressed or I'm resting, and I don't get a lot of leeway in there. And so I have to make sure I'm taking time to de-stress, and that is part of recovery. All right. Acute becomes chronic when you're under recovered, right? So you can be in a good training program that is appropriate work and stimulus for your capacity, but you're restricting it, or it becomes too much because you don't eat enough protein, you don't sleep enough, and you don't get relaxed, right? So appropriate acute amounts of exercise can be there, but they're too much because you're restricting or tying your body's capacity to recover. I hope that makes sense. Lack of recovery is inimical to positive adaptation. And there it is. Hit the chimes and the applause. Inimical. So it's a deterrent, it's blocking, it's rejecting, it is stopping, it's inimical to positive adaptation. Lack of recovery is inimical to positive adaptation. Chronic becomes an overuse injury. So we just talked about training, talked about digging the hole, we talked about filling it back in, we talked about repeating it over time to build fitness. But if you're repeating into a deficit over time, that's when you end up in a chronic use injury. Carpal tunnel is chronic use. You're chronically putting your hand in the same position and moving those tissues over and over and over again. They're being used, they're expending energy, they're being broken down. But the next day you do it again, and the next day you do it again, and the next day you do it again, and you're always in that same position, and that becomes a chronic overuse injury. Carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, whack, 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 whack the tennis ball. I wish I had a tennis ball sound. I don't. Rim shot? Nope. Tennis elbow, chronic use, right? That elbow is being exposed to the exact same stressors over and over again, and it can't get caught up, okay? Runner's knee, that's actually due to poor form, but we won't get into that. Still though, chronic use. Shin splints, Same thing. You're breaking stuff down and is not getting an opportunity to recover. So it starts to become painful. The tissues are telling you something. Stop doing this. Put me in a different position. Move differently. That's what pain is most of the time. Your body's saying, can you do something different right now? That'd be great. Overtrained or under-recovered continued here. So how do I know if I'm overtrained? Potential signs of being under-recovered or overtrained. Nagging injuries, like we just talked about. Irritable, cranky. You're continually putting out energy. Your nervous system is not getting built back up. Your energy levels are low. When your energy levels are low, you don't want to do nothing. And you're going to snap on people. And you're going to be impatient, okay? So you can be incurring stress. And if you're not then sleeping and eating enough and getting some downtime, then that can start to weigh on you, right? So you can start to become irritable and cranky just because you're not providing enough recovery. So that's one of the things you have to try and figure out. What's my total stress load? And are my recovery I hate to say strategies. I guess that's what it is. My recovery, it's too nerdy. Anyways, how am I prioritizing my recovery, right? Poor sleep, right? If you're super stressed out, it's going to affect your sleeping patterns. Low motivation, low energy. These are all signs of being overtrained. Doesn't mean you are. Just starting to point in a certain direction potentially. Lack of appetite. You can lose your appetite when you're overtrained. Poor digestion. This is one of the things you'll see in like marathon runners is sometimes they got really bad bowels. Now, are they running too much or they're just not eating enough and sleeping enough to maintain that kind of activity level and their intestinal lining is breaking down and having a hard time processing the food that they're eating, which then you can just see that starts to pour upon itself. It's a downward spiral. Always tired or fatigued. All those are indicators of being overtrained or under-recovered. Little side note, steroids. So a lot of people think you take steroids to get huge. Actually, you don't. You take steroids to get stronger. No, you don't. Okay. All steroids do is speed up the recovery process. You still need to exercise. You still need to take in enough nutrition. You still need to get your sleep. But the steroids will enhance those recovery and that adaptation a lot faster. So maybe you could get in 5 good sessions in a week. You take steroids, and now you're getting in 8, 9, and 10, right? So it's going to speed up that recovery and allow you to train more. Doesn't mean I'm condoning steroids. It's just there's a lot of misinformation out there on steroids and misunderstanding. I thought that'd be helpful. All right. Final thoughts. Let's get some applause. Take a drink. All right. Oh, hope you guys like that. Some final thoughts to wrap it up. Let's recap. Training exercise is the shovel. Your body and recovery are the dirt. You're dirt. No, I'm just kidding. You're not dirt. If you were, you'd be like, whatever. I have no idea where I'm going with that. Training and exercise is the shovel. Your body and recovery are the dirt. Training plus recovery develops fitness, health, and longevity. Training plus recovery develops fitness, health, and longevity. Notice I did not say weight loss. I haven't said weight loss throughout this whole thing. Weight loss requires a healthy metabolism in an energy deficit. So if you want to lose weight and you're in a calorie deficit and you're exercising and you're not losing weight, your metabolism needs a little boost, okay? You're in what's called a metabolically adapted. Your metabolism has down-regulated energy expenditure and increased efficiency, actually, and it's trying to keep, it's not trying, it is. It's keeping you at your current weight. So in that situation, you need to build up your metabolism to get it running again and then create another energy deficit and you can start to lose weight again. But let me start that again. Weight loss requires a healthy metabolism in an energy deficit, but training/exercise and appropriate nutrition create a healthy metabolism. You have to build your way to one, not diet your way to one. So you have to build your way to healthy metabolism through exercise and training, and then feeding your metabolism so it builds itself back up into a higher energy state and faster cellular regeneration. Okay, just wanted to put that in there on the weight loss. Last point, fitness, health, and longevity will happen when you build a healthy pattern into your day. I don't know what's called this, a healthy life pattern. I like a healthy pattern. So when we build healthy patterns into our day, when we don't think about the big picture and the big goals and I'm trying to be super fit and, run marathons and be awesome. You can think about that, but really it comes down to what are you doing today? And to get those things, you have to construct a day that leads to those. And so as we talked about on last podcast, you need to move every day, train, eat, and relax. Create that pattern in your day, and you're going to get fitness, health, and longevity. Your body is going to do the things you want it to do. If that's move better, feel better, look better, whatever, those things will happen when you build the healthy pattern of move, train, eat, relax into your day. And it is a great way to live your day, knowing that at the end of the day, you got 2-3 hours just to unwind, connect with the people around you, get relaxed, get some good sleep. You had a good, productive day. Now reward yourself with some relaxation, some mental health time, some downtime, and start to feel good about what you got going on the next day. All right, guys. I hope this is helping. Next episode, we're going to dig into it. We're going to start digging into the heavies, man. The stress rest continuum. It's going to be awesome. Help us grow. Like and subscribe. YouTube is the place. Like I said before, and I say consistently, YouTube is going to be the easiest one. I don't think any of this is easy. It's going to be the fastest one to monetize, which allows me to hire more people and do more stuff and create specific videos just on explaining things with pictures and all that stuff, which I'm super excited to do. So help us grow. Like and subscribe. Go to YouTube and submit questions to Dennis@DennisFenrich.com. Hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you at the movies. No, just kidding. We'll see you next week, guys. All right, bye.